I'd like to introduce our first moth storytelling assignment, or moth story assignment number 1. The theme we're going to work with is lost and found. So what I'd like for you to do is to imagine a story in which you talk about something that was lost and found. It can be an object or it can be an idea, anything really that seems to fall under the category of lost and found. Use your imagination. So how do we tell a moth-style story? Well, the good people at Moth have 3 rules that they want us to follow. The first is that the story must be true. Now, as the storyteller, only you know about the veracity of your story or the truth of your story. So we're on the honor system. Tell a story that's true. You'll be glad that you did. 2, tell the story without notes. We're not reading our own writing. That's a useful exercise, but that's a different kind of exercise. We're telling a story, and the story that we tell is going to have all of our natural pauses and speech rhythms. Number 3, we are going to put an outside limit on time, and that limit is 5 minutes. So the flip grid will be set for 5 minutes. Please try to work within that time limit. All right? Now, one of the important features of moth-style storytelling is that you go through an important step of social editing. Here's what that means. We have created social editing groups that include faculty members and your classmates. Your first draft of story will be presented just to this smaller group and to your faculty member. They, in turn, will listen carefully to your story and then offer you shout-outs for things that they've liked. They will also offer curiosities for things that they'd like to hear more about. These are the most effective ways of helping you to edit your next draft. In other words, to expand on things that you might not have sufficiently covered in your first draft, and then to make sure that you keep things that really worked in your draft. These are the observations of your audience, so they will be infinitely more valuable than just a teacher. Although in this case, your teacher leader is also going to be a part of your social editing group. So they will offer their own version of shout-outs and curiosities. I hope that you'll find that these are very useful. And as you're working within your 5-minute limit to expand on curiosities and make sure that you keep the shout-outs in, that you will edit certain things out that are not as useful to the telling of your story in the final analysis. The decision will ultimately be yours, but the 5-minute limit is going to impose some restrictions and force us to make some editing choices, which is actually a very good thing. So if you're like most storytellers, you're wondering, okay, what am I going to tell a story about? I don't have a story that's really all that interesting. Well, this much I do know. You do have an interesting story. You just haven't decided on what it is yet. You also have underestimated its value. So how do we find values in the stories of our lives, and how do we tell them? Well, the good people at Moth have offered a very simple 3-part structure. Here's how it goes. They say, imagine the world as it was. It was a relatively calm and peaceful place until something happened. That something created conflict. That something made your world go topsy-turvy. It introduced tension. Then there was a turning point. The tension built, the conflict built, things were flying apart, they were imploding, they were exploding. The relative calm and peace, the security that you had enjoyed is all gone now. That tension will inevitably come to a climax. It can only build for so long before something happens and the world as it was can no longer be. This leads to the world as it is now. The things have fallen apart, exploded, imploded, but you must rebuild a new world, for better or worse. What is that new world? What have you learned? What should we as listeners learn for having gone through the experience? Oftentimes, you become enlightened to a perspective that you should have known in the world as it was, but you didn't until the tension brought you to this realization. This is enlightenment. That is also the basis of a good story. So think about this three-part structure. Plus, understand that you need to demonstrate how the tension matters, how the stakes get raised, how the tension relates to all of us. Find that connection, all right? Unfortunately, people use the word relatable all the time. Please do not use that word, right? Instead, find a story, a theme, a moment that resonates like a vibrating pitchfork held up to a static pitchfork. The static pitchfork will start to vibrate in resonance in sympathy with the struck and vibrating pitchfork. That's what we want, resonance. So, what is the role of your social editing group faculty leader? Well, we are going to try and lead by example. So we are going to offer our own shout outs and our own curiosities. Plus, we are going to monitor the social editing work and contribution of each member of the group. We want to make sure that our community standards of kindness and caring, and thoughtfulness and appreciation are honored at all times. And we want to model that, but we're also going to ask that each of you model this as well. So the faculty is going to evaluate not the stories, but the shout outs and curiosities, the helpful social editing responses. And we'll use the simple 1, 2, 3 evaluation system where 1 is weak, 2 is solid, and 3 is good. So for this assignment, as I said before, we're monitoring only social editing feedback and not the stories. So hopefully this answers any questions you might have and gives you a sense of freedom and responsibility to be both a storyteller and a social editing partner. Good luck. May the force be with you.